Christians and Muslims believe that God exists. But what is God like? As a Christian, I believe that God is one. He is spirit and he is eternal. I also believe that God is all-powerful, sovereign, and omnipotent. God is perfect, and he is sole and supreme ruler of the universe, and nothing is outside of his control. In Jeremiah 32 and verse 27, we read this: "Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is anything too hard for me?" But dear listener, God is also holy. Holiness communicates the idea of being placed apart. This means that God is above all his creation and is totally distinct from every created being. Although you would probably agree with me so far, the character of God is the departure point for our two faiths, because the Bible reveals much more about God's character. You see, as a Muslim, you might say that Allah is unknowable or utterly transcendent. Yet I am convinced that God is knowable because God has revealed himself as personal and loving. Now, since love requires an object, I have a question. If, according to the Qur'an, God is unknowable, how can one of his 99 names be Allah the All-Loving? Since love requires an object, and since Allah's names are eternal, who was Allah loving before he created? You see, it is logical for the Christian to believe that God is loving, since we know that Jesus enjoyed an eternal, loving relationship with the Father. In chapter 17 of the Gospel according to John, we read that Jesus said this: "Father, I desire that they also, whom you have given me, may be with me where I am, to see my glory that you have given me, because you loved me before the foundation of the world." And dear listener, one expression of God's love for his creation is found in Exodus chapter 34 and verse 6, where we read this: "The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness." And yet again, the psalmist in Psalm 89:14 declares this: "Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. Steadfast love and faithfulness go before you." Dear listener, as Christians, Yahweh is our loving and faithful Creator and Sustainer. As Christians, we have confidence in God's love, because in both the Old and New Testaments, God is described as unchanging, and that his word is unchanging. In Psalm 119 and verse 89, the psalmist declares this: "Forever, O Lord, your word is firmly fixed in the heavens." And the Apostle James has this to say about God's character. In James chapter 1 and verse 17, we read this: "Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change." However, dear listener, God is also our judge. Since God does not change, we must believe him when he says that he will punish sin. Ezekiel chapter 18 and verse 20 declares that the soul who sins shall die. And Proverbs 3 declares that the Lord disciplines those he loves, as a father the son he delights in. Dear listener, God rewards and punishes us in this life and the next by way of his perfect justice. However, God does not do this in an arbitrary or a capricious way, but in a perfectly just and loving way, as a father punishes the child whom he loves. If you missed number 2 in our 52 question series, listen now to hear how you can have a relationship with this perfectly just and loving God.